Hello and welcome to Gamepass Gaming Sunday podcast. I am your host Flap, and today is Sunday, so that means we've got some Gamepass goodness, discussing some hot topics for you tonight. Xbox based, but friendly to all platforms. And it's been a bit of a balmy summer's day or summer's weekend in the UK. Currently basking in 29-degree heat in the evening. It's just gone 8 o'clock in the UK. Welcome to everyone, wherever you are in the world. Let's get into this, shall we? Because we've got some great topics lined up. We're gonna have a quick look at the Xbox controller and the evolution of where it's come from and hopefully where it's going to. We're also going to have a look at the Steam Deck handheld. It's been in the news a hell of a lot lately, as you can pretty much appreciate, and been a hot topic on lots of podcasts, but we're going to cover that ourselves tonight. And also just the future of Xbox, really. Phil Spencer and Matt Booty have mentioned that they're not done spending and there are possibly more acquisitions on the way, and we're just going to delve into what that could possibly look like. But before we get to any of those great things, let's introduce tonight's top panel and a guest. And as always, let's start with Puxley. Puxley, my friend, how the devil are you? Congratulations are in order. You got married. Well, you actually got married 2 weeks ago, but the ceremony was this week. Congratulations and welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you very much. And thank you to all those in chat as well, because I know I thought I'd do like a little post just to kind of announce it, because I know I'd mentioned it for quite a few weeks now and it was going to happen, and it finally happened, and it was a fantastic day, and obviously Flap, you were there as well. Hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah, I had a fantastic time. It's great.
No, I'm glad you did. And thank you all in chat for your kind words and congratulations messages. As you can probably imagine, I've been a bit away from the gaming news as of late, but I've been catching up over the last 2 days. Really looking forward to what we have to discuss tonight.
Absolutely, and we'll be able to get our teeth into these topics. But before we do any of that, we obviously we missed last week's show because of the England making it to the final of the 2020 Euro Championships, which is unheard of for England. We've only ever made it to a final of a major tournament once before, and believe it or not, for those who don't know, there's 1966 in the World Cup at Wembley. And the week before, Scott was in the chair hosting. Scott, how are you, my friend? How's your week been?
Thank you very much, Flap. Yeah, honestly, that feels like a lifetime ago now, doesn't it? I know we only missed a week, but that final is long gone. You know, I think we're all over it now. It feels like it's been a long time. I really missed it last week, actually. So it's a big part of my week. But otherwise, this week's been great. I was just for everyone in the chat, I was complaining beforehand because I'm not a big fan of this weather, if I'm being completely honest with you. So this weekend's been a bit of a struggle. It does mean I have had the chance to get a little bit of gaming in though. So I'm right at the end of the Yakuza at the moment. I really want to get that done before Death's Door's out next week. So fingers crossed. I saw that done.
So you're having a great time in there, yeah?
Honestly, it's genuinely one of my favorite RPGs I've ever played. I'd easily say it's up there with something like Final Fantasy X, which is one of my favorites of all time as well. It's just really, really good, but also fun. It's like, there's just a lot of humor in it as well, which I think is something that is different to a lot of other RPGs. So I'm on the final chapter now. So I should hopefully be able to get that done tomorrow with a bit of luck, and then Death's Door's out on Tuesday. So should be just in time.
Excellent. Well, that's Well, like I say, we've got some Game Pass fantastic games coming up very soon, next week and the week after as well. So obviously our diaries and calendars are going to be very full,
definitely
playing those kind of things. So now's the time to finish off any games that you're just kind of finishing up, really, I guess. But fantastic, Luke, my friend. How the devil are you? Welcome back to the show. What have you been up to this week?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, great to be back. I've not been up to that much, actually, gaming-wise.
Okay.
I think in the 2-week interval, so to speak, I finished up Ratchet and Clank on the PS5, which I
what'd you make
really
of that?
loved. Yeah, I really loved it. I thought it was
It's good, isn't it?
Fantastic game, really fun. So I kind of had a few days of post-game blues, as you tend to do when you really enjoy something like that. So
Yeah.
And then I think probably like Scott, I've just kind of been waiting for Death's Door to come out, and then obviously, as you say, the week after we've got the Ascent and Omni, and
Flight Sim. Where you've obviously got Flight Sim on your 3080. What's your take on Xbox Flight Sim? Are you going to dive back in just to have a look, or?
I think I will just purely for the intrigue of seeing it run on a console, and seeing how it compares. I have direct experience of the PC version, obviously, so it'd be really nice to look at it. What I'm really looking forward to, on a tangent on that, is the new kind of engine updates that they're talking about. Really looking forward to seeing those, because they apparently improve performance dramatically, which would be great for that game on all platforms. And I'm sure I'll be asking Scott how it performs on the Series S as well, because that's something I'm really, really interested in.
That's the only reason I'm going to download it and play it, is just first of all, I just want to see what it looks like on a Series X, and then I'll probably try for an hour on the Series S. But then that'll probably be it done. There's so many games coming out. You mentioned there the Ascent. There's also Crease Tales coming out soon on Game Pass as well. So I'm sure. When's that out again? Is that not next week, but the week after?
Is it 29th for Flight Sim?
Something. Something like that. Yeah.
So 27th, I believe, isn't it?
Is it 27? Perhaps we can just have a Google and just double check.
Yeah, two weekends fantastic. Time it should be. Then I'll be able to report my findings to everybody.
Yeah, well, it's actually been the topic, or the centre part of a topic that we've run on this show a couple of times. Actually, how they're going to get squeeze the performance out of Flight Sim on the Series S. It's going to be a very interesting one. Moving on, and a guest to the show, and it's so delighted to have him back on the show. He's got a fantastic channel. I absolutely love the videos that you cover. I really do. In fact, you do something that, I don't know, you don't really see on any other videos. You seem to cover the topics that other people just seem to miss. And it's always a pleasure to watch your videos, my friend. And you've had a PC upgrade as well recently. So I think you're on your new PC. Is that true? Boxenberger, welcome to the show, my friend.
It's true. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to be back on the show. It's been way too long since I've been here. I think it's like 6 months now already.
Yeah.
5-6 months, something like that. Way too long. Next time we have to keep the pause shorter. And I built a new PC this week. I got a lot of comments on Twitter about it, whether I switched to PC gaming now because I have a 3080 in it. But the main purpose is, as you said, the channel and the videos and making content for it. And I really appreciate the compliment, because I do try to cover sometimes topics that not everyone is talking about, and it's not easy to do that in this mainstream focused media world right now. But the channel has been growing very well. I couldn't be more grateful for the support that I get from the community, and that's why I decided to invest a little in a good PC to make the videos visual a little bit more pleasing. And I had a lot of fun with that PC this week. Otherwise, I've been replaying A Plague's Tale again.
Oh, okay.
With the Series X enhancements at 60 FPS. Awesome game. Still love it. And then I spent most of my gaming time actually in a game that I cannot mention right now because I'm under NDA. So
nice. Yeah. Excellent. We've got an insider amongst us.
It's not an insider. I just got a certain review code for a game.
Oh, okay. So. No, fair enough. Oh, fantastic. Oh, that's good. So when that releases, will we know what that's all about? Are you going to do a video on that, I'm guessing?
Oh yeah. As soon as the embargo drops, I'll be having a video up on my channel for sure.
Fantastic. Excellent. We'll keep an eye open for that. Yes, fantastic. Great to have you back, my friend. And your knowledge is always welcome on the show. This been a few comments in the chat around this game. Yeah, this is a game called Splitgate. I am having the most fun with this game than I have had for in a first-person shooter for a very long time. It is literally I was going to say a rip-off, perhaps a homage might be better, but of Halo, and kind of crossed with Portal. As you can tell, you can kind of shoot portals at the wall, jump through them, shoot through them. It gets for some really creative gameplay that you don't really get on any other kind of games like that. So definitely check it out. It was in demo. It's now gone into full beta, so it's not in the demo section on Xbox. It is cross-platform, so jumping into games and stuff, cross-play, sorry. It's pretty good. You can get into loads of games pretty easily, so you are up against PC people, but Yeah, the balancing seems pretty good, actually. And as you'll see in the gameplay footage, there's so many creative, fun things you can do. So definitely go and check it out. And what we might like to do at some point, perhaps even this week, is if anyone listening wants to join up, team up with us, perhaps we can go 4-on-4 with some of our listeners. That would be pretty cool. We'll probably announce that on Twitter. But also, before we move on to the topics, Pucks, we have a giveaway tonight, I believe.
We do indeed, yes. Wakanda, listening in, has very kindly offered us a Game Pass Ultimate 1-month giveaway. And they've also told us the rules, of which you all need to follow as well. So Wakanda has chosen a number already, of which needs to be chosen or nearest to. But basically, chat, all you need to do is type in a number between 1 and 1,000, and the closest, the person who has the number closest to the golden number will be our winner. So by all means, please start your guesses in the chat. I shall store them, and then by the end of the show, I shall announce who the winner is, or who is closest to the golden number. Are you there, Flap? Have we gone wrong?
No, sorry, I was on mute. No, sorry. Yeah, no, we got some numbers coming in. Like you say, any number between 1 and 1,000, closest to the golden number, gets the prize. One guess each. Pyro, you've gone too far. Between 1 and 1,000. Fantastic. Okay, well let's get on with the show, shall we, everyone? This is why we're all here. And I thought I'd start with a topic that was kind of a bit of an odd one, really. During the week, Phil Spencer gave a chat on Kind of Funny Podcasts where he was praising the PS5 controller. And this is to quote him directly. He said, "We're definitely thinking about different kinds of devices that can bring more games to more places. There's probably some work that we'll do on the controller. I think Sony's done a nice job with their controller, and we kind of look at some of that and think there are things we should go do." Earlier in the year, actually, he's this isn't the first time he's actually commended the PlayStation 5 controller. He's also on record as saying, all of the innovation is something that they should actually be looking at themselves. And it's a great thing to hear, because I don't know about everyone else, but in my mind, I think the Xbox 360 controller, certainly during that era, was pretty much the de facto controller. Xbox One, I think most people had a preference for the Xbox controllers with the offset thumbsticks. I know PlayStation seems to be kind of getting better and better. The PlayStation 4 controller is certainly better than the PS3 one. And the PlayStation 5 controller is an absolute highlight of the machine for me personally, if I'm honest. Two of my most favourite games are actually Astro's Playroom and Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, and that's one of the reasons is that because it fully utilises that new controller with the haptic feedback and the adaptive triggers, and it's such a delight and pleasure to use. It brings a smile to my face when I play those games, and I'd absolutely love to see Xbox bring some of those features to the Xbox controller. And perhaps we'll come to you first, if that's okay, Archimedes. Do you think Microsoft might just sort of cut and paste what Sony have done with their PlayStation 5 controller? Do you think they're going to bring all of the features over, like the haptic feedback and the adaptive triggers and the touchpad and all kinds of things, or are they going to be a bit choosy around what they bring to the controller, do you think?
I think they will be a little bit more choosy if they will adapt something. I don't think they will adapt the touchpad, the speakers, or the microphone. I don't think those are the highlights. I hear nobody talk about those kind of features. And to be honest, everyone I know, I don't know about you, but everyone I know that I talked to about this turned the mic off, actually. By default, because who wants to have Sony listen all the time? So I don't think they will copy these kind of features. Now the rumble functions, there I agree with you. This is actually a highlight. I thought it was a gimmick when they first announced it, and when I played Astrobot for the first time, you really could feel that's something special. And I know a lot of people don't like it. Some turn it off, but it's always great to have an option, because in some games, I remember in Spider-Man Miles Morales, it was awesome to have that haptic feedback in the trigger. Stuff like that is really awesome to feel in the hand. And that's definitely something where Microsoft is probably looking towards very closely. The thing really is, for me, still the Xbox controller is the better one because of the layout. simply I like the asymmetric thumbsticks way more. For me, I don't know whether my hands are strange, but I really have problems playing shooters longer than 30 minutes on the PlayStation controller. So I definitely prefer that. But yeah, it would be nice to have these haptic triggers and the rumble functions in there. I've speculated about this quite a lot. When will we see the next Elite controller? I think they could introduce that in that kind of in that kind of price point region during the generation, where they have actually a new feature in there. Because the base controller with the consoles, they won't get an upgrade till the next generation launches, and that will be like 7-8 years out. So if they introduce it, I bet it's an Elite controller. Also, it probably helps a little bit with durability, because that's still the big question mark on the PlayStation side. How long will these rumble functions actually last, and what's the durability of the controller? And if you have a higher price controller like the Elite controller, you could simply invest a little bit more in durability and quality of these kind of functions. So that would definitely make sense, and I would happily take it. I love the rumble functions and haptic feedback on the DualSense controller.
I think you might be muted there, Flap, if you're
You're
talking.
yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
no. I'm having to mute because I've got a fan blowing on me constantly because it's pretty warm where we are. But apologies. Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think one of my most favourite uses of the haptic feedback is in Astro's Playroom, where you walk over a metal surface and you can actually feel it kind of clank in your hands, and it just brings a smile to my face every time. It still takes me by surprise, and I really love that. We'll come to you later if that's okay, Luke, because obviously I know that you've got a PS5 and you've probably got some strong opinions on it. So let's come to you first or next, Scott, if that's okay, because I don't know if we've had a chance to either hold PlayStation 5 controller or even game with one yet, but from what you've heard, what aspects of the PlayStation 5 controller would you like to come across to the Xbox controller?
Yeah, I'm in sort of a weird situation where I've not played on PlayStation 5 yet, so I've got absolutely no idea what it feels like. So I'm kind of just taking it off sort of what I read and hear. Obviously, the comments that both yourself and Luke in particular have made is that it adds an extra dimension to the game. When I look at the controller, the one thing that stands out is certainly the haptics. The Xbox One, if you remember, had the rumble triggers. And I remember feeling that for the first time and really noticing a difference. And there's even some games. I was playing Grounded the other day, and I think Grounded takes advantage of the rumble triggers as well. And you can really tell and notice different. I do think even something as subtle as that adds just that extra dimension to a game. So I think the one standout feature I'd like to see is definitely the haptics. The other features, the mic, I'm not really interested in. I've heard some pretty awful stories about online games where obviously everybody still has the mic switched on and it's just a bit of a mess. Same with the speaker. I don't think that interests us too much. The one that I'm kind of interested in, that I kind of think that I won't really be able to judge until I actually get my hands on a controller is the triggers, the adaptive triggers. Because when I first heard about that, I wasn't. And actually, Archimedes and Flap and Luke, I'd love to get your thoughts on this, because when I first heard it, I really didn't like the sound of it, if I'm being honest, especially as someone who plays like multiplayer shooters quite a lot. I didn't like the idea of triggers locking or the triggers having different resistances when I'm playing, something like Apex Legends or Halo in a competitive setting. I know they can be adjusted in terms of the amount of effort required, or you can just switch them off entirely. But kind of, I didn't really like the sound of that when I first heard it. But obviously, a lot of the feedback that I've heard since, particularly in games like, I know Ratchet has I think it's a really good, it uses it for kind of like almost alternative shot where you pull it halfway and it's kind of one shot, you pull it all the way and it's like an alternative
in
shot
practice
as well.
in practice, that never really works out too well for me. I don't know what Luke thinks.
Okay.
We'll come to him next
Same.
practice, but
Yes.
it doesn't. You just pull the. You're quite clumsy, so you just pull the trigger and it fires, and that's good enough normally. But
Yeah.
it was
It feels good. It really feels good.
It does.
When
It
the
does.
controller fights back. But getting back to your point, what I heard from everyone who plays competitively in multiplayer games, they turn those triggers off because it simply gives you a disadvantage.
Yeah.
When the trigger fights against your actual pull, that definitely doesn't work in your favor.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But for single player experiences or cooperative experience, it's really awesome.
Cool. Yeah, like I say, it's something that, and I know a lot of people have said it, is kind of like you can't understand it. Like, it's hard to describe. It's something you've really got to feel. So it's difficult for me to judge. So that one, it's kind of like, hopefully, in the not too distant future, I'll be able to have a try one and really experience it for myself. But the rest of the features I'm not really too interested in. I've been on record many times saying I despise gyro controls. So I've got zero interest in sort of any gyro controls being in there. So I think haptics definitely, and possibly the adaptive triggers, depending on how they're implemented. The one thing actually, one concern I had about the adaptive triggers, and obviously you guys have used it for a little while, is I was always concerned about sort of how that might impact the durability of the controller. I kind of had this fear, sometimes when you're playing games and you maybe pull the trigger maybe a little too hard, how susceptible those might be to breaking. But I don't think I've read too many comments about the triggers breaking. Obviously, it's fairly early in the generation, but that was also one concern I had. So it'll be those two features, I think.
Yeah, no, there has been some, concern around that, and there have been some triggers that break. I think they're relatively modular, so they shouldn't be too bad to swap out. I mean, I don't know what the cost of those are, and whether you can buy sort of third-party ones yet. But there is you say about the speaker. Yeah, I actually love the speaker of the controller.
Oh, okay.
If you play The Last of Us Part 1. Every time you turn the flashlight on, it clicks, but it clicks in your controller. And again, I'm easily pleased. Hands up, I am easily pleased. But it just brought a smile to my face every time. But I also see that there's audio logs. Yeah, when you pick up the audio logs, it actually plays through. Did you? Wow,
I hated it. And maybe I just got scared. But when I played Days Gone, I never gotten used to sound coming out of the controller, and every time that happens, I was, what is happening? I didn't like it at all.
No, fair enough. Yeah, see, I found it a pleasant experience, but each to their own.
Yeah.
And I was really annoyed that they didn't actually put it in The Last of Us Part 2. Because when you do your flashlight in part 2, it doesn't actually click in the controller, which I was most perturbed about. But I actually love that aspect.
In the PlayStation 4? That
was PlayStation 5, but it is a PlayStation 4 game. Don't forget, with a PS5 update.
Yeah, I think for the speaker, kind of, we've spoken about this in the past, but whenever I'm playing games, I've always got my headphones on anyway, so I'd be able to benefit from those little pieces anyway. So, but yeah, it's just kind of like with the mic and the speaker, it's kind of just more, again, going back to sort of playing online games is, I guess you would have a headset on anyway, but I don't want to hear people through a not so great speaker, shall we say, on the controller because mic, because everybody's going to have one. But at the same time, I remember getting the 360, and every 360 came with a headset, if you remember, and the PlayStation 3 didn't. And I think that was actually one of the reasons where sort of like online gaming really took off during the 360 era, is because everybody had the capability of communicating with one another. And I guess that's something that the mic does for PlayStation owners as well. But yeah, it's just again, just thinking about the online multiplayer side of things, I don't think that would make a particularly pleasant experience.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I've got to be honest, I was playing, funny enough, this Splitgate on the PlayStation 5 just to give it a bit of a go. And the mic switched on by default, and I was having a particularly bad game, and I'm cursing my socks off. And then I didn't realize, it took me a little while to realise the mic was on, so I was kind of felt a bit bad afterwards. But yeah, that's what you get, I'm afraid. So, Luke, yeah, time for you, my friend. What's your take? Because obviously, you know the PlayStation 5 controller. What is it you would want to see on an Xbox controller? That they would borrow from the PS5. Anything in particular?
I think if I was just picking and choosing features, I think you'd have to go with a the haptics plus the adaptive triggers.
Okay.
I think I actually probably agree with you. I quite like the speaker on the controller. I think I get why people.
Oh, you do?
Maybe don't like it. I do understand that rationale, but I quite like it. And there are games that make some cool uses of it, as you say. Returnal's actually a really good one, where that has kind of an that uses a lot of the features of the controller. In fact, it's probably one of the best games out there, including Astrobot, for using the controller. And one thing that does, as an example, is it has haptics when the environment, there's rain in the environment. So you feel the kind of disparate rumble of the rain, which is really cool. Other games have done that as well. But then it also plays the sound of the rain through the controller, so you get this kind of really cool sensory experience as you're holding it.
And when you pull the bow back and it kind of stretches.
Yeah, exactly. Returnal's a bit like Ratchet, with the triggers where it uses sort of a half press to do one thing and then a full press to do another, and it works really well. In fact, Ratchet, it's cool on that one, but I think actually Returnal does it better. There seems to be a bit of a better tension break, so it's a bit more defined as to when you half press and your full press. So those are the features I'd want. I think I've speculated for a while that I would imagine if they're going to put them anywhere, it'll be in Elite Series 3. Kind of makes sense to put them in that controller.
What exclusively or just to start off with?
I think just to start off with and see what the reaction's like. I mean, for me, I think it's probably blasphemy, but I think the DualSense is a better controller than the Series X controller. I think last gen. Yeah, I really do.
Define better.
So I mean, feature-wise, I think stuff like the adaptive triggers are really, really fantastic. They really do. They aren't a gimmick. They really do add a lot to a game. Haptics are the same. I don't know. I think the DualSense, because it's bigger, I quite like that. And the kind of symmetrical, asymmetrical stick thing has never really bothered me. I think because I've played on PlayStation for eons, and I've also played on Xbox for eons, it just, like, it doesn't, I can switch between them. I don't really struggle with that at all. So I think I just prefer the DualSense. I think it's a bit heftier, a bit bigger, better for my hands, not for everyone, obviously, but yeah. So I really love that controller. I mean, as you said before, I think the Xbox controller's de facto been the leader since the 360 days, and I'd agree with that until now.
If it wasn't for the adaptive triggers and the haptics, Luke, would you say the same thing out of interest? Yeah, it's interesting that, because kind of Sony and PlayStation, ignoring those things, kind of went different directions going to this generation, because Microsoft actually made their controller ever so slightly smaller, while Sony kind of beefed theirs up. And obviously, I've not held the DualSense, but I would prefer the Xbox controller to be ever so slightly bigger for my hands too.
Yeah, I think so. It reminds me, oddly enough, the DualSense of the 360 controller in its size. And I found that the 360 controller was fantastic. Like, it's a fantastic controller. So I think even if you stripped all of the adaptive triggers, haptic feedback, and you just had them on a par in terms of feature sets, I would still prefer the DualSense just for that reason. But it's, it's swings and roundabouts for everyone, isn't it? So it's just, it comes down to personal preference ultimately. So but yeah, I think those two, the adaptive triggers and the haptics, are the features I'd pull. I don't really think the touchpad adds much.
I never did. And I completely agree with Scott. No, go on.
No, I was going to say Astro, I guess, probably makes the best use of that, of the kind of the touchpad, but it's not even, it's not game changing or anything like that. I'm quite surprised they kept it in, to be honest, because I don't think it's that great a feature. But
Ghost of Tsushima is one that does that for me, because when you want to find out where to go on the map, you have to kind of swipe up on the touchpad, but it's not a natural thing. You don't have a spare finger or thumb to do it, so you've actually got to kind of take your, you know what I mean? It just seems crazy to me that. It's a bit shoehorned in, isn't it? That one.
It is. So so I wouldn't be bothered about that. But all the other features, I'd quite like to see. Obviously, the adaptive triggers and haptic feedback being the main ones.
Yeah,
I completely forgot I had a touch bar. If I'm being honest.
Yeah. To be honest with you, though, Scott, I completely agree. The whole motion control thing. I can't think of a single game that actually uses that to any great degree that adds to the game. What was that? The Rubber Duck game on the PlayStation 3 when it first launched. Can you remember?
Rubber Dub, wasn't it?
Rubber Dub. Yeah, I can kind of, it was a bit of a showcase for that kind of thing. But to be honest, since then, I can't think of a single game that's actually utilised that sort of sixth sense kind of controller. I don't quite get it. Puxley, we've got quite a lot of chat stacked up, so we'll do that as well. But first off, what are your thoughts? Because you was obviously around in the PS4 era. Are you happy with the Xbox 360 controller as it is, or does it need a perk? Do you think a pep?
The 360 controller or the Series controller?
Sorry. Well, no, the Xbox in general, yeah, but the Series controller, yeah, sorry.
I mean, having gone from PS4 to the Series controller, it did feel a lot more primitive, I suppose is the best way to describe it. Similar to what you guys were saying, like the trackpad, for example. Bearing in mind, for me, the PS4 was basically a sole single-player machine. I didn't really do much multiplayer gaming on my PS4. So the games which did utilise it, I think, did it quite well. And as you say, games like Ghost of Tsushima, it's only subtle, as you say. It's more so just a virtual button, so to speak, in 4 directions. But for me, a lot of the games that do implement it aren't really fast-paced enough where I found it a bother to move the thumb. The only thing that I found a bit troublesome at first was trying to remember what swipe direction does what. But then once you do figure it out and remember it, then... there was an action for swapping in 4 directions.
You swipe left for the flute thing, don't you?
Yeah, it was left for flute, it was upwards for the wind, and it was right did something and down did something else.
That's it.
So I thought that was pretty cool. And one thing I did like, which I find surprising that Archimedes has said he didn't like, is the speaker and the controller. I thought that was a really good little touch to add into the controller. And I think the first time I did experience it was actually on the Uncharted collection, which got re-released on the PS4. Because they added some subtle updates to that, and I think there was a lot of the audio logs and collectibles there, which when you collected them, you'd actually hear the audio logs and stuff through the controller. And unlike Scott, I play a lot of my games not with headphones, so that wasn't a bother for me, and I really enjoyed the experience of it. And I think even more recently, games like Ghost of Tsushima, where when you'd hear like the wind direction would come through the controller, and I think you'd hear like the cranking of a bow and then releasing it, that would all come from the controller. And it was those small little touches that I just really liked. So playing games on the Xbox which didn't have it, I did notice it, only subtly. It's not like it's a big deal, I guess, but because it doesn't have it, I suppose you do notice the difference when you've gotten used to having it, sorry. But I say I haven't used the PS5 controller, so I can't really comment so far on if it should or shouldn't have all the haptics and stuff, but I trust what Luke has been saying and what the rest of the internet says about the PS5 controller, and that maybe haptics is the way forward in terms of a future 360 controller. But does the PS5 have haptics in the analog sticks as well, right?
No, it's just the whole controller itself. It just has haptics. It just shakes.
Oh, right, okay. I mean, because I know the Switch Joy-Cons obviously have the haptic... the haptic feedback devices within the Switch Joy-Cons is made by the same company made those as what was also done the PS5 one. So is it a massive difference, do you think? Because I know there's a lot of, again, as much as I love the Switch, apart from the original first-party titles to show it off, not many people have really used it for anything more than a rumble. So, I mean, do you reckon those haptics would be properly utilised? Or do you reckon it will just become a glorified rumble feature? I suppose that's a question for Luke, I guess, or both of you.
It kind of is. It kind of is a glorified rumble, but it's almost like I'd call it like a high definition rumble kind of thing.
Yeah, I think this was a thing that came up prior to launch, prior to anybody getting their hands on it. I think people hear the haptic feedback and they just think, well, it's just a rumble, isn't it? It's not really just a rumble. It's kind of. I think that definition, Flap's very accurate. It's like HD rumble. It's like it can pinpoint all sorts of different locations on the controller to give you feedback. So, for example, the Returnal Rain one, right? The raindrops hit at disparate places on the controller. So, whereas obviously you might just get a standard rumble in a on another controller. I think in terms of the Switch, it's definitely a level above that. I think the Switch itself is probably a small level above the Series X Rumble or Xbox controller Rumble itself. But I don't think the Switch has ever really made that good of a use of it. Like, devs haven't really, apart from oddly enough 1-2 Switch, which was amazing at launch for experiencing that. Had some incredible controller stuff going on. Nothing on that platform has really taken advantage of it, which is really strange. But I mean,
that's what I base my experience on as well, in terms of the HD Rumble, should you say?
Yeah, I think that's fair. But I would think probably if Xbox adopted it in a controller, there would be some mandate for a number of developers, particularly first party, to actually, go and take advantage of this, because I don't think it's much work. It's just more someone has to sit down and think about it. So that's what I'd hope, anyway.
Well, I was a little bit surprised. I'm guessing you were playing Plague Tale on your Xbox Series X, Archimedes. In fact, you said you did. I was a little bit surprised to hear that they've actually added adaptive triggers for the PS5 version. Did you hear that? Oh, Boxenberger, are you there?
Pardon me, I forgot to unmute. There are always two buttons, one in the software, one on the mic.
Yeah, I'm the same.
Usually I use the one on the mic, but sometimes when you switch tabs, the software mutes itself, so then you don't realize that you're muted. I realized that thing about the Plague Tale this afternoon when I tweeted about enjoying the game and so on, and someone told me that on the PlayStation actually has the trigger function, and since it's in PS Plus, I think I might download it and just look and play the first 1 or 2 acts to see how that feels in a Plague Tale.
Yeah, I'm the same. I want to give it a go just to see what it's like, to be honest. But I was quite surprised by that. Pucks, where are we with the chat, mate?
Yeah, I've got quite a few things here this week. At the moment,
don't forget our competition as well, actually. Yeah, but let's do the competition.
I'll do this first, and I'll do a new reminder. So I'll start off, Bullman Gamer. So happy we are back this week. Yes, we were saying pre-show that it felt like a long time, even though we've only just missed 1 week. So glad to see that we've got people that are looking forward to the show. But BMG again says, I'd love the haptic feedback, but want the adaptive triggers. But don't want the adaptive triggers or touchpad. Harley Yaris says, it's about the thumbsticks. The PS controller cramps my hands playing FPS. Wakanda, prefer the triggers, but if they add all the better features, I hope they add an on and off. Stubbs Gaming says, hello, I'm live from my front garden cleaning up my hedge mess. Welcome, Stubbs.
Okay.
BMG again, I'd love them to include it in the base controller when the next upgrade of the console comes out, i.e. a Series X Pro, for example. Sorry, I've got a lot of comments here from BMG saved, actually, because BMG, again, regarding Luke's comments about preferring the PS5 controller, requests that we fire Luke from the panel. So
I agree.
Well, no, I will. I'm going to defend Luke here to a certain degree. I'm not of the same opinion. I don't prefer it, but it is a much easier transition than it ever has been in the past. So, if he was, because I think Black Ops 4 is on PlayStation Plus this month when I downloaded it and played it, and it's the first time I've actually ever semi-enjoyed playing a first-person shooter on a PlayStation game, on the PlayStation platform. So it's a much easier transition. I still think I prefer the Xbox one, but different strokes, I guess.
Oh, it's definitely the best PlayStation controller. I think we can agree there, because the DualShock 4, that felt to me really like a more or less cheap controller. I don't know. It didn't feel. What's the English word?
That's a good point, actually. The PS5 one feels it does feel premium. It's absolutely solid.
Premium.
When you squeeze it in your hand hard, it doesn't click. It doesn't crack. You can't twist it. It's really solid.
And there's just something to it. When you have plastic in your hand, it can feel like it's valuable plastic or that cheap toy plastic. Sometimes when my kids come home and have those cheap toys there, then you can really feel the difference in the quality of the plastic. And that is kind of the difference between the PS4 and PS5 now.
I think they should bring back the boomerang.
This kind of is. That's funny you should say that. This kind of is as close to the boomerang as they've ever got, really, isn't it? The PS5.
I'm so disappointed they didn't actually release that. You know how Xbox did like the Hyperkin Duke? I would love for Sony to release like like a throwback to that.
It really did not look comfortable, did it? All right, are we caught up with everything, Pucks?
Just two more. One here from Wakanda who says, "For me, the trigger is okay, but the haptics just send my hands into a spasm. So from a disability point of view, it will need an on and off switch of some description."
Well, you can. I don't know if I think there is on and off, but there's also different strength. I think there's 3 different strengths, like low, medium, and strong. I think it's called something like that.
Right. Okay.
But,
final one here from Harley Harris who says, "I don't like the PS5 controller though because it is bigger." But everyone has different opinions, which is obviously perfectly valid as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
But as you said, I will go back to what we said at the beginning of the show. For any new listeners tuning in, we do currently have a competition going today for a 1 month of Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, kindly gifted to us by Wakanda. So Wakanda has also created the rules for this. So all you have to do in chat is simply put in a number between 1 and 1,000, and anybody who is near to Wakanda's golden number shall be this evening's winner. So if you'd like a chance to win, please put your guess in the chat. I shall store it, and then later in the show, I shall reveal the winner who's closest to the number.
Fantastic, excellent. Yes, well, good luck everyone in the chat. Get those guesses coming in. Just a very quick roll call in the chat. We got obviously Wakanda. Well, thank you very much for your gift, Dr. Jonas, Baldman Gamer. We got Stubbs, Indie Gamer. Always great to have you guys. Achievement, Dr. Jonas, Moseko. It's Timmy. Oh my God, I'm scrolling up. Back from the Dead's with us. Welcome, my friend. Thank you all for being here. We had a few different ones. Harley Harris, further up. Thank you all, guys, for being here. Hope you're enjoying the show. Got 2 more topics. We're kind of done with topic 1 now around the Xbox controller. I kind of enjoyed that. I do like the Xbox controller, and I still think, for me personally, it holds on to that de facto title. I am looking forward to Series 3. I also agree that I think if they are going to release these kind of features, we will see it premiered in the Series 3, Elite 3, and then hopefully perhaps a little bit further down the line coming to your everyday controllers. But we had quite a good week of gaming news, actually, and I don't think many people saw this one coming, although it kind of has been rumoured in the past. But Steam announced this week their latest piece of hardware, and it's a handheld device called the Steam Deck, and I can't believe anyone listening hasn't seen it or knows all about it already. It's basically a handheld PC that users can play Steam and PC games on the move, basically. And most people, I think, when they first knew about it, once they had understood it was obviously just basically a handheld PC. The next question was, well, how can we customize it? What can we do? Can we put a unique OS? And the answer seemed to be yes. And at that point, I think most gamers, particularly Xbox gamers, kind of thinking, well, if we can stick Windows on there, then there's absolutely no reason why we couldn't potentially stick Game Pass on there and actually play Xbox Game Pass games natively and locally on the device without the need for streaming.
I don't think you need Windows for that. Isn't there a possibility to run the Windows Store under Linux?
Well, that's the thing, you see. So yes, it's actually a Linux operating system, isn't it? But there were concerns, because I know Digital Foundry did a video, and there were concerns around Linux using the API that's like DirectX 12 things that games use. I think games may have to be more optimized perhaps for a Linux system. So it might actually be better to go down the Windows route, ironically. But that was one of the questions I was going to ask, and perhaps I'll come to you first, Boxenberger. Are you excited for this? Are you going to get one? And if you did, do you think you'd stick Windows on it and try and get Game Pass games on it? Oh, are you there, Boxenberger?
Damn, the same shit happened again. I was just saying, I am excited. I didn't pre-order one. I want to kind of see how it performs in the field. When actual gamers get their hands on, and you see, do the sticks tend to drift? How does the touch controls work? How do the games actually perform? on it because I kind of share some of the concerns that Digital Foundry expressed. If you have a solely based Linux system and you run the games on, and a lot of those games will be, especially in the next couple of years, very optimized for those low-level APIs that DirectX 12 provides, and you kind of don't have that. I wonder how the games will perform. It's definitely something I want to see first before I make that investment. The other thing really is, ever since the pandemic started, I don't really have the need for a handheld anymore. I realized that with my Switch. I used to play the Switch a lot because I used to travel a lot for work. I spent like at least one night per week in a hotel or something, and so I really traveled a lot and played my Switch a lot. But now, ever since the pandemic started, I haven't been traveling at all for work, and like 1 week for family vacation, and that's about it. Yeah. And when I'm at home, I'd rather play on my Series X, on my PlayStation 5, or now on my brand new gaming PC with an RTX 3080 and a Ryzen 7. And so at the moment, I really don't need that PC handheld thing. But I'm definitely interested because it's not just an interesting machine to have. I like the convenience to play wherever I am, sit on my back porch and play outside or something like that. It's something where I use my Switch for, and if I can exchange that with the actual games that I'm playing via Steam or via Gamepass, that's an awesome opportunity. The specs of the machine sound fantastic for what they try to be. They are not competing with the high-end PC gaming space. I've seen a lot of people on Twitter saying, why would I get that? Because I have a whatever graphics card. Yeah, that's not what it's supposed to be. It is a handheld, and it is a very powerful handheld with an interesting idea. And I definitely want to see how that thing behaves when actual gamers get to play it and not just IGN.
Well, you raised a really good point there. I'm going to come to you, Scott, next, if that's okay, because I know you've mentioned this in the past, but obviously with the Switch, there is, if you want to play those new Switch games, you have to pay or buy a Switch, which is handheld, and there's obviously a docked version. You can get a dock where you play it into your TV, but that's all there is. But obviously with a handheld PC, lots of people have a desktop. Do you think mobile gaming is quite as prevalent as perhaps it once was, particularly given the pandemic, perhaps? Do you think, people actually want to have a handheld mobile PC? Because are you actually going to sit on the bus and play that or take it to holiday with you and stuff? Or do you think that's not quite so much the case with a handheld PC?
Yeah, the use case is interesting. And I'd say maybe if you just look at the success of the Switch, and in particular the Switch Lite, then that certainly shows to me that there's an appetite for the mobile market. Obviously, just gaming on phone these days is as big as it is as well.
But is it? Yeah. But if there was another Nintendo sort of under your TV desktop, what am I trying to say? A set-top box that you could put under your TV that played all of the same games as the Switch. Do you think the Switch would then be quite as popular if there was a choice of two different systems that ran the same game? Do you know what I mean?
I know what you mean. I think personally speaking, if there was just a console version of the Switch that didn't have a screen plugged into TV, that would be my choice 100%. Right. But do I think the Switch would be successful if that was the only model? No. I think part of the reason the Switch is a success is because it is a mobile device, or it's a hybrid device more specifically. I think if they were to introduce that SKU sort of now, I don't think it would harm anything, because they could basically say, look, we've got all bases covered. We've got the Lite, we've got the normal Switch, we've got a Pro, whatever you want to call it. But I certainly think the Switch has proven that handheld game, and there is certainly a market for it. I know people who play their Switch exclusively in handheld. I personally play my Switch exclusively docked. The hybrid model.
I'm one of those exclusively handheld gamers. I think I played 1 hour in docked mode, and that's about it.
It's interesting you say that, Archimedes.
It is. No, go on, Scott. Go on. You're going to ask him the same question, I think. Go on.
Well, I didn't necessarily have a question, but it does bring me onto one of the appealing aspects of the Steam Deck, which is I think it looks sort of infinitely more comfortable to hold as a handheld device than a Switch. Now, the reason I've never really used my Switch in handheld mode is because I think it's horrific to hold. I think it's a very, very poorly designed handheld console from a hardware perspective. I think ergonomically it's dreadful. The Steam Deck, however, it's a bit bigger. It just looks nicer to hold. It looks and feels like it holds more like a controller with a screen in the middle, more so than just sort of a tablet, which is essentially what the Switch is. And I personally don't see. I don't understand how anyone can just play the thing exclusively handheld, because it's so bloody uncomfortable in my opinion. We've just talked about the differences between the Xbox and the PlayStation controller. People have their preferences, but it certainly shows that there's an appetite there. So, Flap, I'll let you ask Archimedes the question there.
Yeah, well, I was just intrigued to know, do you play it solely in handheld mode because when you plug it, into your big TV, graphically, it's obviously not as good as the Xbox and the PlayStation and stuff like that? Does it just feel better, in inverted commas, in handheld mode, do you think?
Yes, it does. I mean, when you see that most of the games run something like 27p to 900p on the Switch, even in docked mode. Yeah, some get to 1080, but most are stuck at 900 or below. And when you upscale that on a big 4K screen, it just looks blurry. The details are not there. It's just not as good as if you play it in handheld mode. It looks way sharper. And then there is the convenience factor. When I want to play on the big screen, I can simply use again my other 2 consoles for that. So that's really for me the reasons why I play on it mainly on portable.
Yeah, no, I kind of assume that, to be honest, because, like I say, if there was a dedicated I keep saying it, a tabletop kind of console, let's call it, dedicated console without a screen that, that played these games kind of in 4K, upscaled 4K, whatever. I'm just wondering what the preference for people would be, whether they'd actually go for the handheld Switch or not at that point. Because I guess my point is, and I'll come to you now, Luke, if that's okay. Obviously, I know you were quite excited for it, and you kind of got me quite excited for it as well, but mainly from being able to play Xbox games on it on the move, I think. But do you actually think there's kind of a market for mobile PC gaming? I mean, like Archimedes says, the best way to play it every single time is going to be on a desktop machine with your 4K or 1440p monitor and stuff. Is there a big appetite in the PC market for a handheld device, do you think?
I think there is a market for it. I think it's a niche market. It's a very niche market, but that doesn't mean it's necessarily a small market, if that makes sense. I think for me, the minute I saw it, I was just like, how do I get this? How do I pre-order it? Right? How do I reserve it? And I have I've got a overclock 3080, and I have I use an OLED as a monitor, and so I've got all the bells and whistles, PC desktop experience. But being able to take that and I think there's an important factor in all of this, and it's kind of the optimal use case, I'll call it, which is for people like me who have massive Steam libraries, who have been on that platform for ages and ages and ages. The ability to just pull that straight onto a handheld at any point and play effectively your entire Steam library in a handheld experience is really cool. And it's really tempting, and it's kind of what I imagined the Switch would be like. And the Switch is really great at what it does. I mean, it has a lot of drawbacks, I think, as people know, but if you then expand, if you think of this, you're expanding this to all AAA experiences in some form, essentially all indie experiences, any game that you've got on your Steam library, and then you also factor in, as you say, the ability to kind of mod it as you want, to bring in Windows if you want, and then that opens up all of the Game Pass stuff. Obviously, if you just want to play on Steam, Microsoft are bringing more and more of their games to Steam now anyway. So, stuff like Halo Infinite will be playable day one through Steam.
But at a cost. At a cost, though, I guess.
At a cost, at a cost. Unless of course you mod your Steam Deck, and you've got Game Pass Ultimate, etc. So, there is absolutely a use case. I think the mobile market itself is absolutely huge, but I think you are right in that dedicated devices for mobile gaming are not very big anymore, apart from the one outlier, which is the Switch. The Switch is supremely successful, but I don't think there's room for loads of them. But I think there's room for this, because I think this is a very specific use case. But because it's such good hardware and it will have buzz around it, I suspect it'll, kind of attract more people into it. And also, I mean, it's quite reasonably priced. Certainly the base model is for what you're getting. I mean, it's an incredibly powerful mobile device. It's really insane. Right down to supporting, full RDNA 2, being able to have VRS and ray tracing on the go. And obviously, the extent to which it can run something like ray tracing is going to be limited depending on what you're looking at. But I just think it's just an awesome piece of hardware. And if anything, I mean, the kind of reservation stuff that's gone on in terms of how quickly the first batch quote unquote went shows how excited people are for it. So I managed to reserve the 512 version, so I'm very happy. And I just can't wait to experience it.
Do you think this? I mean, I don't know whether Microsoft ever had any intentions at looking at the mobile market. I would suspect not, but I'm guessing this might very much dissuade them from probably moving into that market now, because I can't imagine what an Xbox device would do that the Steam Deck probably doesn't, in all honesty. Did you think that Microsoft may not move into the mobile market if they were ever going to now?
Yeah, I don't think they were ever going to. I think what's the point if you're Microsoft? You've got cloud gaming. You can put that on any device you like. So that and it reaches more people because you don't need to buy a specific device like a Steam Deck or a Switch to experience Microsoft software. So it would be a really weird investment, a really weird splash of cash in a market that isn't particularly large. The Switch dominates it. And you've got, you can put your software and your service on literally any device that has any kind of cellular internet connection. So why would you? Yeah, I just don't think. I think even if they'd remotely considered it, as soon as they started formulating ideas for xCloud, etc., they'd probably just bin that straight away.
Yeah, I think Luke's right when he says that. And I think one thing, to consider is, Microsoft is selling their games on Steam. So if the Steam Deck's successful, it potentially opens up an audience to first-party Microsoft games that they release on Steam. But one thing that I think is possibly an interesting sort of, whether this happens or not is probably unlikely, but you may be aware that your EA Play subscription, I believe, can get you games on Steam. So you don't necessarily have to use the Origin launcher, I think it is on PC. And I think that has been talked about in the past, but I wonder if this maybe Microsoft will be more interested in pushing the types of conversations in terms of, do we ever see a position where you can actually link your Xbox Game Pass subscription to Steam the same way you can do an EA Play subscription and get first party Microsoft games on Steam through your subscription? And then in that case, you don't have to necessarily mod the Steam Deck at that point in order to access the Game Pass games, because they're already part of your library. I think if Microsoft weren't having those conversations, or even if they were, and like I say, I'm not necessarily saying it's going to happen, but the release of the Steam Deck might maybe add an extra layer to to those conversations, because I guess it makes it more appealing if, like Luke says, you can play Halo Infinite, but if you could also play Halo Infinite on Steam Deck via your Game Pass subscription, then I think, then that is essentially at that point an official Game Pass dedicated handheld.
It's I'll come to you, Archimedes, if that's okay, and I'll then come to you afterwards if that's all right, Pucks. But yeah, Archimedes, I mean, I thought along similar lines, Scott, actually. I was thinking, well, they could very easily just, create a Game Pass app on the Steam Deck, and run it natively in its OS. And I'm thinking, well, actually, that's not likely to work, because that means they're doing themselves out of kind of sales of the games. And when we look at games like Flight Sim and Sea of Thieves and things like that, it's a very big seller on Steam. So it seems a little bit odd that Microsoft might consider that. But is that something you think Microsoft might consider, putting a native Game Pass app on the Steam Deck? Because let's face it, Game Pass exists on PC, and yet people still buy their games via Steam. So it's probably not really much of a difference, I guess.
Yeah, I think they are definitely looking into it if it makes sense. I think they will wait a little bit and just see how it goes, because and not just sales wise for the Steam Deck, but also if people can easily install the Windows Store and play everything from there that is in Game Pass, there's really no need to develop a dedicated Game Pass app for it, because deals like that usually require a lot of legal work in between Valve then and Microsoft and to figure everything out, and the publishers. But if there's just an easy option to install it anyway, I don't think there is really the need for it. So I think they will wait and see how it goes. From the sound of it, it doesn't seem to be that difficult to do it, so they could probably pull it off really quickly if they think it's a business case. But yeah, it would be definitely interesting, because almost everyone that I have seen that pre-ordered one was talking like, I can't wait to play Game Pass games on that thing. So the need is definitely there, and I don't think we should compare it directly with xCloud, because it really is the beauty that it is computing locally. It does work without Wi-Fi or 4 or 5G connection. So that's really beautiful. Really the beautiful thing about it. And what just came to my mind is when I think Puxley talked about it, that we should also consider a certain region for that device, and it is the Asian market. Handheld gaming is really big over there. Mobile gaming is the biggest gaming platform in Japan and South Korea and so on. And for them to have now a dedicated PC that is basically a handheld in that form factor, that could be definitely huge over there. So there's a lot of potential for that device, and I think Microsoft is going to pay close attention to how it will perform, to how people will use it, if they will install the Windows Store on there and play Game Pass games. It's definitely something interesting.
Yeah, I think there was a comment in one of the chats as well, actually, which I'd kind of overlooked. But if you don't currently own a gaming PC at all, then £350. Can't remember what it is in dollars for the base version. And I know it's only 64 gig, but it does have expandable memory. £350 for a gaming PC in inverted commas, because obviously you can put it on a deck, and it's not it's not going to be 4K gaming and stuff, but it is still PC gaming. And like I think Indie Gamer and Luke was saying, there's a whole plethora of games out in the PC market, particularly indies and stuff, that people, without a PC, you just have no access to it. And as an entry point into PC gaming, £350 is incredibly cheap. Pux, what's your take on it? Because obviously you've got a gaming PC. Is this something you'd be interested in at all, do you think?
I was definitely interested, or very much surprised to see it when it first kind of released, to the point I was wondering if April Fools had come early or something, because it just seemed a bit out there, didn't it? And it kind of hit us out of nowhere, especially when you consider that I think some of Valve's previous hardware efforts have been very hit and miss. So to see something like this, like, wow, you're actually doing this, and to the point that loads of people, I've seen loads of comments online as well, people saying that this is what the Switch Pro should have been and whatever else. But I think I've been looking at it from a hardware perspective quite a lot, because I know a lot of people are tooting that, about the specs and stuff, and saying that it's basically the equivalent of a PS4 or an Xbox One. But again, a lot of people have also been saying about, you could install Windows on it and then you could access everything else. But then my it's not a concern or issue. It's my thoughts with that are, because the system runs on Linux, I believe on Steam's own Steam OS, I believe it's going to be running on. I did some looking up into it a few days ago as well, and because typically on Linux, as a lot of us may well know or may not, Linux isn't necessarily the best platform for gaming. Typically due to the fact there's a lot of services that you need for games now, which Windows has built in, which Linux doesn't, for various reasons. But apparently, according to this, Valve has built a feature that they call Proton into their Steam OS, which is basically an interpreter between Wine and another toolkit called DXVK. So which is basically the interpreter which allows you to run Windows stuff on Linux. So.
But it's an extra layer that's going to have to get processed and zap performance, I'm guessing.
True, but Linux on its own is a lot less resource intensive than Windows. So as much as I appreciate that everyone's getting all excited that, yes, it's been confirmed or whatever else that we can install Windows on it, my thoughts then are, yes, you can, but then how much will that affect the performance of the system? Because if we already know that it's basically an amalgamation of parts to create an equivalent PS4 or an Xbox One, in the years to come, because bear in mind, I think we've seen, PS4, Xbox, let's take games like Cyberpunk, for example. I mean, we know that they run, it runs very interestingly, shall we say, on older school hardware anyway, and I know we're talking PC here, but you still need a powerful machine to run games like that, and games aren't getting any less resource intensive as time moves forward. So my biggest thought with this is, will this thing become obsolete by the time it already releases? Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, I do, because it's releasing, unless I'm incorrect, because it's Q3 2022. Is that what the statement
It's this year.
No, it's this year.
This year, yeah.
Oh, it's this year?
Yeah,
I thought
really?
it was next year.
I saw Q1 2022.
No,
That's that bloody popular. I tried to reserve one yesterday. And
Yeah.
it's quoting the availability as being Q3 or Q4 2022 if you would have pre-ordered now, but the actual hardware is going to be later this year. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely have a point. I mean, we had a similar discussion with the Series S when that was announced. Yeah, will it be able to perform over the course of the next 7-8 years? Will it help hold game development back in like 4 or 5 years or something like that? Yeah, it is an interesting question, but I think if you compare it as a per pixel computational power, the Steam Deck really is on par with the Series S, and I think as long as we have those consoles in, and we will have them for the next probably decade, 7 to 8 years at least, and then there will be another 1 or 2 years of cross generation. Yeah, so let's say like 8 to 10 years, something like that, and we will have the Series S around, and in that time, I think the Steam Deck will be fine.
I mean, but I'm seeing. I've just seen a comment in the chat here from Indy who says that yes, it runs on Steam OS, but as it's open source, it has infinite flexibility. Which, questionably, yes, that's true. However, I'm kind of playing devil's advocate here, but then the counter to that though is that open source flexibility, you're then relying on people to basically homebrew their own improvements, which you then have to rely upon, because it's not as if everyone out there who has a Steam Deck is suddenly going to get into open source development and know how to write software to improve the OS, right? So,
funny you should say. I mean, that's one of the advantages of owning a console over PC, isn't it? It's a closed sphere of kind of control, shall we say, and they will take care of all of that, whereas obviously PC in general is kind of open source in inverted commas again, and you can custom and tailor it. But I don't know if you've seen the Digital Foundry video. They were saying, one of the large dependencies on the success of this is going to be developer buying and how well they optimize for this particular system.
Because something else I did read as well, I don't know how true this is, but being a Steam platform, and obviously it's made to run Steam Steam OS and run Steam, games via Steam. Steam have their own certification process, whereby if the game is so developed for it, then you need to meet a certain standard for controller support. Hence, you're able to use the built-in analog sticks and buttons and such. But I know there was a lot of articles and stuff saying that yes, it's been confirmed you can run things off the Epic Game Store, for example, and I think there was two other platforms, maybe GOG or whatever else. But then they don't have the same certification platforms as what Steam does. Therefore, you're not necessarily having to cater for to be able to use a controller. So it does then raise more questions that even though, in theory, yes, it can support all of these PC platforms and play all these games, you still have the issue that you may not be able to use the built-in controller for it. So you still may have to buy the Steam, what do you call it? Like the dock. Is it a dock? Is that what it's called? The Steam dock, I guess I'll call it.
Yeah.
You still have to buy that separately in a mouse and keyboard. So there's a bit of faff is what I'm trying to get at. But counter to what I'm saying, I don't mean to sound like I'm being all negative, because I do agree what's already been said, that if you don't have a gaming PC and you're in the market to try and get your first PC, especially if you're like a younger child or something, right, who maybe, especially nowadays where I know there's a lot of younger kids and teenagers that are right into, watching streamers. They're like their own celebrities now, right? And, younger, I know older people like watching as well, but younger people especially who can't afford these things openly may wish to have these powerful gaming PCs, but because of how costly it is to build a machine, can't do. So what I do like about this is that it is a fantastic entry point into a gaming capable machine to be able to run these things. And yes, you have to pay a bit extra for a dock, but you are able to plug a mouse and keyboard in through USB via that dock and, and play standard PC games that way. Someone was about to say something then, I heard it.
Yeah, no, that was me. I think one thing to say, and those are all, fair points, but I think actually the advantage of this machine is that it's open source. Because if you just want to buy this and all you ever want to do is play games from your Steam library, then great, you can do that. But unlike Switch, for example, or other closed platforms, if you think, well, actually, I'd really like to, play Gamepass stuff on this, then you have the opportunity to do that. Obviously, there'll be teething issues with that. It's not going to be a super simple process, but people there's a lot of incredibly smart people in PC gaming that do this stuff and that make it work in a seamless and intuitive way, and it might be simpler than some people anticipate. There's even in theory the capability to actually have a dual boot, so you can just load up your Steam Deck and you can choose to boot into Windows or into the Steam OS. That's entirely possible with that machine. So I think it's I think the flexibility that the machine gives you, being an open platform, because effectively, and this is what Valve said in the interview with IGN, they said, don't think of it. It's better to just think of it as a PC with controllers like attached to either side. That's what it is. It's just a PC. A really small, powerful, capable one with Valve's branding, but that's all it is. So I think that's going to be the big advantage of it, being able to do really whatever you want with it. And if you just want to stay into Steam and you don't ever want to deviate from that, it'll be a great machine. But I think it'll be a great machine outside of that as well.
I think this is where battery life is another question, which I think has also been brought up as well, because I appreciate what you say. I do agree with that. But then I think this is the difference between what the Steam Deck could become and what the Switch currently is, because especially when it comes to Nintendo first party games, because very much Nintendo know their system, right, and they've developed for the last 4 years now, and a lot of the games that the first party stuff they delivered has been developed in such a way that it does support short-term portable play as well as long-term, when you have it docked or charged on your TV or whatever. Take Mario Odyssey, for example, where, they've made it so that if you are in portable play, you are able to just run around for a bit, collect a few of the moons that are in the game, and then, you can stop there, put it down and carry on. But then there's a lot of PC games, which is the opposite, I would argue. There aren't many games out there which are developed for that shorter play. There are a lot of games on PC want you to be there for hours and hours and hours on end, and maybe spending lots of money. But this is where I think, yes, it's great to have a portable machine, but then will people really take to wanting to play really long play sessions while traveling? Because this is what I think the advantage of Switch is, because you can very quickly put it into what you call like sleep mode or whatever else, and quickly resume where you were. But then, will the Steam Deck work the same way? If it does, then fantastic. But then, will people want to play long sessions on a smaller screen when you could just play on a big screen? I mean, what's your take, Luke? I guess because you've got one, right? You've reserved one.
Yeah, it does have a resume feature actually.
It does.
So
Okay.
it does. Yeah, built within SteamOS, there is a resume feature for games. It's not like quick resume for Xbox, but it is one where you can essentially pause wherever you're at in the game and then come out, go into SteamOS, and then put the Steam Deck down, come back, load it back up to where you were. So they've actually demoed a bit of that, and we don't know how in depth that is. What games does every game support that? Is it just built in at a native level? Don't know, but they have shown that feature off. But I think, I think that it's a handheld platform, so it is what you make it, and whatever experience you want to have on it, that's the one you can have. Obviously, some people may use it just to play get shorter games, as you say, like maybe some indie games. It could just be a dedicated indie machine. That would be a really cool machine in and of itself. For people like me, I'll play everything on it. I'll play AAA stuff and indies, etc. Anything that's on my library.
I was going to ask you about that if you don't mind, actually, because as far as I'm aware, you do have a pretty new gaming PC, right? The 3080 stuff. Why would you play on the Steam Deck when you've got that laying around?
Because the Steam Deck is for occasions either one where I'm not here, right, where I'm not next to my PC, or two, sometimes, as weird as it sounds, sometimes you don't want to sit down and go in a separate room and play on a PC.
I do get that. Get that.
So you know what I mean? Like sometimes, sometimes like maybe I just want to sit in the living room on the settee and have the Steam Deck, but still play the game. Sometimes. The big use case for me is I want to lay in bed and play Death Stranding or something like that, or Diablo 4. Like, that's what I really want to do.
Pick the right game to put you to sleep.
Is it fair? Yeah. I was going to say, is it really that boring?
Luke does raise a really interesting point there, though, because it's not direct comparison, but in my the way I see it fitting in, because I am interested in this. I haven't pre-ordered one simply because it's so bloody far away and I want to just see some of the reviews, but from my experience, the way I see it sort of fitting in is, and even though I'm someone who doesn't have a particularly big Steam library, consists of Football Manager 2012 and CS 1.6 something like that, but I'll often find myself in the living room, and that's where I'll use xCloud. I use it on my laptop while maybe the missus is watching TV, but I'm downstairs, I've hooked my controller to my laptop and I'm playing games on xCloud. That's where I sort of see fitting in, where I'm on the sofa, I'm chilling, or maybe I'm in bed and I'm using it that way. In the same way that I don't play all my Xbox games on my 4K TV. I play them in different places in the house, and sometimes, in places where my Xbox isn't, and it gives me that option. So it's about having that additional option. Yeah,
and built into that is in exactly the same way that xCloud works, is the fact that SteamOS, on the deck will support the full cross compatibility of cloud saves, so you'll be able to use case again, I'm gaming on desktop PC on whatever, I don't know, Death Stranding again, and then I can save that, take the deck, and then go into the bedroom or living room and load it up and load my save, and away I go, right? So that's it's that kind of ease of use that I think is really compelling about it. And then obviously the actual, predominant, or one of the predominant use cases is when you're not at the PC, i.e. you're not at your house and you're traveling or something like that. So, I think it's a really interesting bit of hardware, I think, and it's garnered all sorts of reactions, and I completely understand why, because it's, I don't think anybody really expected it this quickly, and, from Valve, who have a spotty history in hardware. But I think if they get it right and it's a good piece of hardware, which it looks like it is, then I think it'll be a big success, and hopefully it'll pave the way for future iterations and maybe third party support in terms of taking the concept and developing their own versions, etc.
Yeah, absolutely interesting. And like I say, I think from an Xbox fan's perspective, it as great as it is for PC gaming, I think there's a lot of people out there that have wanted Microsoft to make a handheld device, and it just kind of seems like this is kind of it. That's why I kind of put in the title that Microsoft's unofficial handheld device, because it's almost like kind of Steam or Valve have done it for them now, and they don't have to bother almost. But Pux, where did we get with the chat?
Yeah, I've got quite a few things saved there actually. Quite a few comments from a number of people. So I'll start from the top. Indie Gamer says the Steam Deck is an awesome device, but I unfortunately don't have reason to own it. I might have to book some holidays to justify it. For Indie Gamer again, for me it destroys the Switch. Harley Harris, yeah, I was so tempted to pre-order, but I held off too. Fear of missing out almost got me. Indie Gamer, as the only reason I have a Switch is for indies, and Steam is the ultimate indie collection. Baldman Gamer, not interested in the slightest in the Steam Deck or a Switch. She's the Elite says, I reserved one. It's going to be my little indie machine, and I'll be able to dock it to my TV as well.
That's interesting, because I ran a poll on Twitter about, if you're interested in buying it, and it kind of came. I was a little bit surprised we had 181 votes in the end, but yeah, some people were definitely up for it. And others are going to see how it goes. But the not at all's kind of surprised me. I thought we were going to have more people that say no, not at all. But only 16% of the 128 that voted. But yeah, I thought they were quite interesting numbers.
Another comment here from Stubbs Gaming, who says, it might... Sorry, I'll start again. Stubbs said, it's a reply to a question from Indy earlier. So Stubbs says, it might indie, but it will never destroy Switch in sales. Dr. Jonas28 says, we hardly use the Switch. The novelty wore off quickly. Baldman Gamer, I didn't pay £500 for the Series X to play with a handheld device. She's no Elite. I was happy the Steam Deck actually includes a case. They actually want you to take care of it, unlike Nintendo. Indie Gamer again, the Steam Deck is actually an awesome thing for people to be able to dive into PC gaming, especially if they don't own a big boy PC, which we've already discussed. Indie Gamer again, the only worry is battery life, which I think I saw in the chat earlier. Apparently the official statistic is that it ranges between 2 and 8 hours, obviously game dependent. Dragonwolf, I need a Steam Deck. Sorry, do I need a Steam Deck? No, but do I want a Steam Deck? Hell yeah.
Okay.
Stubbs Gaming, Steam Deck appeal will be niche. Nintendo Switch has no worries. She's no Elite. I reserved the 512 gig, and I just noticed it says Q1 2022. Stubbs Gaming, Steam won't be able to cope with the demand. They have no foothold in hardware. Some people might get one until... Sorry, some people might not get one until 2023. And last again from Stubbs is, if I had the money to buy the Steam Deck or a Nintendo Switch, I would buy a Nintendo Switch hands down.
Do you mind if we have a quick chat about the Switch Steam Deck sort of comparisons? Because I have seen a lot of conversation around, should Nintendo be worried, or is the Steam Deck what the Switch Pro should have been, and all these conversations. And I think it's probably important to maybe stay, at least in my opinion, that these two things, despite both being handhelds, they kind of cater for different markets, and they can both coexist and they can both be successful. I don't necessarily think Nintendo are going to be worried about the Steam Deck, and Valve certainly won't be worried about the Nintendo Switch, otherwise they wouldn't have released the bloody thing. But I don't necessarily think they're comparable hardware in sort of any way, shape, or form, except for the fact obviously that they're both handhelds. In my opinion, the Steam Deck is everything I want the Switch Pro to be, or whatever the next Switch was going to be, what turned out to be the OLED model. But I think these are catering for different markets, and I don't necessarily expect one to eat the lunch of the other, or the Steam Deck to be successful or unsuccessful because of the Switch. I think these are two very capable devices that have two completely different markets that can, like I say, both coexist. And if the Steam Deck isn't successful, it's not because of the Switch. It's maybe because the hardware wasn't good enough in the end, or compatibility wasn't good enough, or the battery life wasn't good enough. I don't necessarily think they sort of impact each other. Luke spoke about how you could potentially do things like dual booting OSs and things like that. That's Luke, also, I think you mentioned the fact it was a niche market, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's small. I think that's absolutely right, and that is a different market to the current Switch market. So I don't think Switch owners are really interested in dual booting, but I think somebody who picks up a Steam Deck would certainly be interested in that sort of thing. And you look at the buzz that we've had so far. I mean, like I said earlier, I tried to pre-order one. There's already a year's delay on the top end model for these things. So I think actually, if you look at the Steam chart, which works on dollar sales, I believe the Steam Deck, despite the fact people are only paying £4 or whatever, is already in the top 10 in terms of dollar sales for the past week or something like that. So it's obviously had it's got a lot of interest, but I think that interest is a different market entirely to those who are maybe interested in the Switch, and particularly maybe the OLED model that's going to be coming later this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. You know, they exist in different spheres. They've got a different setup of games. I know it's gaming in general, but yeah, they're different things. And to compare them isn't really fair on either machine, in all honesty, because, you know, obviously from a Switch point of view, the Steam Deck is vastly more powerful and stuff. But from a software point of view, you know, people who love Nintendo games will want a Switch and stuff. So, you know, they operate in a similar sphere, but they're just different, you know, different devices completely to cater into different audiences. And if you're someone that likes both, then I suggest you probably like them both, but for different reasons, I'm guessing. Yeah. But yeah, no, fantastic. Pucks, where are we with the competition? Can you just give people just a bit of a reminder before we move on?
No problem at all. So, update for anyone who's new listening into the show. So, Wakanda in the chat has been very kind to offer us a Xbox Game Pass Ultimate 1 month code to give away to one lucky person tonight. And Wakanda's also made up the rules for this. So Wakanda himself has chosen a golden number between 1 and 1,000. And all you have to do in the chat is to have a guess and to pick a number between 1 and 1,000. And whoever is the closest, if not gets it bang on, will be our lucky winner tonight. So if you'd like a chance of winning a 1 month Game Pass Ultimate code, put in your guesses in chat, a number between 1 and 1,000. I'm collating numbers as they come in, as they have been coming in. And by the end of the show, we shall reveal who the lucky winner is. So best of luck, everybody.
Fantastic. Yes, best of luck. And that concludes topic 2, everyone. So thank you for your comments and the chat for chiming in. It has been quite a divisive one, this one. You know, people are either absolutely for the Steam Deck and desperately want one, or people seem quite indifferent to it. Or, you know, I guess a little bit like me, there are quite a few cautious people out there as well, because I think, you know, stats on paper is all very well one thing. But, you know, if we're playing Xbox games on Game Pass or any kind of games, and they're not performing particularly brilliantly through whatever reason, then that will be a deciding factor for many people. There's always early adopters, and I take my hat off to those guys because, sometimes they get the best deals. You know, they've been playing some hardware before it actually goes mainstream and stuff. But yeah. Okay, well, that's fantastic. Well, I thought we'd move on to topic 3, and this is just a bit of a fun one, really, and please get involved, chat. This is basically where Xbox goes next because, you know, I think it's undeniable that they've had a fantastic year so far in their own right. Comparing it to other companies and stuff, I'm not really into that. It doesn't particularly bother me. I think Xbox, like I say, in their own right, has had a fantastic year so far. They seem to have some big plans, and it's where those plans are kind of head into the future. And we've done this topic a few times, but Phil Spencer and Matt Booty discussed this week about the prospect of, you know, further acquisitions in the deal. And I think many people have speculated that it could be something like TT Games or NetherRealm Studios. But there's lots of other studios out there. Perhaps we'll come to you first, Luke, if that's okay. I know we've had this conversation, but is there anything obvious that you think might be on the shopping list from Microsoft? And also, do you think that if acquisitions are inbound, that they've already begun? Because we're already into the new financial year in the States. Do you think that these deals would have been closed out at the tail end of the last financial year for the States?
So I think in terms of where they can go, I don't really I look at what they've done and where they are, and I genuinely don't think that they can really do much more other than give us more of the things they've already done, if you see what I mean. The big issue that they had years ago was the fact that their first party was just totally dreadful, just in terms of quality and quantity. That's completely changed now. Obviously, we're still waiting on the fruits of that, so to speak, but it's right around the corner. That's going to happen at the end of the year, and then from then on, it's just it's all games all the time. So that was a big thing. Hardware was an issue back in the Xbox One era, right at the beginning. They quickly changed that, and they've done fantastically this generation. So I think they will continue to expand their first party, as you say. It makes sense to do that. I don't think they have a number they want to fix at or stop at. I think they will just look and see, okay, what's available. Will it add to Game Pass with the concept of what Game Pass is? And as you say, it might be big studios. It could be stuff like NetherRealm if WB decides they're up for sale or not. And it could be ones that are a lot smaller. They won't rule anything out. I don't think they'll look for the best deal. I mean, in terms of acquisitions, I think certainly if there's any acquisitions that are in the offing, they'll be in the process of doing that now. They take a long time to actually close. Like any merger or acquisition, it takes a considerable amount of time to
would the decision to acquire more studios happen perhaps in the final quarter of the financial year, do you think, where they've got some spare cash, as it were? Is that the kind of time that you think we're looking at?
No. It could happen. Okay. They can do it. They do it at any time. I think I think you're probably right in that if they had something that was in the offing towards the end of the financial year, you would having worked on acquisitions for US private equity firms, which is a different thing, but it's still sort of the same. They're always super eager to close them before the end of the financial year. It's just a fact of life. Everybody wants to do it before then, so you start the financial year with a clean slate. I think anything that Microsoft have got on, I think it's very organic for them. I don't think they're beholden to any, we want to get it done before this time or we want to start it at this time. It's just, where's the opportunity, right? Who's out there? What's the kind of price we could get for this, company, that sort of thing. So I'm sure that before the end of the year, they will probably announce at least another acquisition. I'd be surprised if they didn't.
Calendar year.
Yes, calendar year.
Yes.
And who that is, who knows, right? But
if you had to pick one, who would you like to see?
If I had to pick one, I think if I was looking at it and saying who's a really good natural fit in terms of what they've done with Microsoft and the kind of product they put out. And the kind of variation, it'd probably be a Sobo.
Oh, that's the one I was going to pick.
Yeah, I think that makes as much sense as something like Housemarque does for PlayStation, right? At this point, I think it's kind of right up that alley. They've worked really closely with them. They've shown a propensity to develop really different, unique products from Flight Sim to Plague's Tale, right?
They've certainly shown their chops. Yeah, they've certainly shown their chops in Flight Sim, haven't they? My God.
Yeah, exactly. They have fantastic, graphics technology.
Didn't Tencent recently invest in them? I thought I read something that Tencent
it was a percentage,
20% or something.
Yeah. So that's an interesting point, actually. So let's assume, or let's take that as a fact that Tencent have actually acquired 20%. Does that actually stop an acquisition at this point?
No.
Okay. How do they get around that?
Well, they go to Tencent and they say, "How much do you want for your shares?"
Oh, okay. They just buy them out. Okay.
Yeah. So, that's what they do. I think I read the Tencent one might have been some debt financing, which is a little different.
Oh, okay.
So I could be wrong on that. I'm sure I read it was debt financing, in which case Tencent probably haven't acquired any. Well, they may have acquired a small stake, but debt financing is essentially lend us some money.
But seeing as Tencent are a kind of, let's call it a direct competitor, they're in a similar industry and market. Could they decide that they don't actually want to sell those shares, and does that bring the deal to an end, or is there a way around it?
No, they could. A lot of that depends on the terms of a shareholders agreement, which will no doubt have been signed if Tencent have taken an investment, and that will determine there are. I won't go into super detail. There are things called dragon tag rights, usually in shareholders agreements, that dictate that if certain offers come in, then shareholders can be dragged out with everybody else. So they have to sell their shares at market value, essentially, or for a similar value as everybody else is being acquired for. So who knows with that one, right? If stuff like that's not there, then Tencent can absolutely just say, well, no, we're not going to sell our shares, so tough. Although, the difference, I guess, in that scenario is it wouldn't necessarily stop Microsoft from buying the majority of the company, because they could do. And then also with that, they would effectively have complete control to some extent. So, it could happen. But yeah, I mean, outside of all those technicalities, I think Asobo will be the closest fit. But there are lots of companies like that, right? There are lots of other companies that I think will be really good with Microsoft. But it just depends on the circumstances, and if those companies want to be independent or not. And for some, it'll make more sense than others. Some may not want to become part of Microsoft, although I think that list is slowly getting a bit smaller now, just because it's great to have financial security and be able to just make your projects without that worry.
Yeah, no, completely agree. Boxenberg, we'll come to you next if that's okay. Is there any other particular development studios that think that would align nicely with Microsoft if they were to get the checkbook out again?
That's a question I get asked a lot. Which one should Microsoft acquire next?
If you had to pick one, what would it be?
If I had to pick one, I'd love to see a German studio in there, so I pick Crytek.
Okay.
Yeah,
nice.
Crytek has been in financial troubles a lot over the last decade, so they would definitely benefit from that from a financial perspective. And they had a close relationship when they developed Rise, and ever since they have only released one game, and that was The Hunt. Yeah, so obviously they are not capable of putting out many games right now, but the technology that they have, the Cry engine is really awesome. And Microsoft talked a lot about how they want to have studios all around the world from all parts of the of the globe, and Germany is missing right now in the roster. So that would be definitely something.
There were rumors about Microsoft, acquiring Crytek, wasn't there? Not so long ago, I think.
I think we have heard now rumors about almost every
that's true. Yeah,
developer or publisher. Yeah, we have heard rumors about them acquiring Ubisoft or something. So
that's true. I just remember thinking at the time, it'd be like, my God, they got the id engine, they'd have the Cry engine, and there'd be some serious engines that they could build games with if that were to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay. No, that's fair enough. Scott, anything particular that you think you'd like to see that would, realistically happen?
I think out of the rumored acquisitions that have been spoken about recently, I think the one that stands out to me is probably NetherRealm. Especially considering Microsoft do seem open to reviving the Killer Instinct franchise, and they simply just do not have a developer. And there are very few fighting game developers out there these days, at least available to work on a game like Killer Instinct. And so I think NetherRealm, they'd obviously then get the Mortal Kombat franchise, and I guess be a counter to Sony seemingly locking up Street Fighter, although we don't know what's happened with Street Fighter 6, but certainly they did with Street Fighter 5, and it wouldn't surprise me too much if 6 went a similar way. So I think NetherRealm, and I can't really think of a studio off the top of my head, if I'm being honest, but just something to maybe work on something like a Banjo, something a little bit different to their current portfolio of games. Something, a studio that could out on something like a new Viva Pinata, something that caters towards that maybe a younger generation, a younger market would certainly be up there as well. And I think Phil Spencer has spoken about that and wanting to have more games for that sort of for that market. So I certainly see them going that way. I just don't know who that could be, though. I think really at this point it's getting difficult, isn't it? Because they've already got a lot of genres covered. They've already got a lot of studios. They're not just going to buy someone for the sake of buying someone. So they've really got to be really careful about who it is that they go and acquire if they do, and how they fit into their portfolio of games that will be coming out over the next couple of years.
Do you not think that someone like Telltale Games with the the Lego series and stuff really kind of buys into the E for everyone type games that they're kind of missing at the moment? Do you think?
Yeah, that's an option. I imagine the Lego sort of deal wouldn't come along with them, especially considering a lot of them are, I guess, Lego games based on existing franchises. So, but obviously there's developers that are talented at making those types of games, so that could translate over to that sort of market. So yeah, that's absolutely possible as well. Whether they go ahead and acquire 2 studios from WB is obviously another matter entirely. I think that would be pretty pricey, especially if you consider the amount of money that EA had to part with to buy the mobile developer from WB as well. So yeah, those 2 would certainly make sense, and I think they would fill 2 quite big gaps in their existing portfolio.
Yeah, no, it kind of makes sense, doesn't it? And I'm guessing we're all getting a little bit sick and tired of the same names keep cropping up and stuff. And it would be nice to have some further clarification on this. Puxley, is there anything else you want to add? Do you think there would become a point where it's sort of Microsoft a little oversaturated with so many first-party titles? Is that a thing? Do you think?
Only if a lot of these genres are similar, I think. Similar to what Scott was just saying there. I think one of the biggest gaps currently, I think this goes for mostly both PlayStation and Xbox, I believe, is those old school platformers that I'm a massive fan of. You don't get many of those kind of proper, kind of, for all ages, family-friendly platformers or similar titles anymore. And as Scott just said then, I think like a resurrection of Banjo-Kazooie or something similar, or a new IP, because I think would be a perfect fit on all platforms. I think PlayStation, for example, even though it's a glorified tech demo, I think, is it Astro Boy, whatever it's called? Oh, is it just Astro's Playroom, sorry.
Astro's Playroom, yeah, that's the latest one. Yeah.
Like, I've seen so many people play that, and, to the point where people are speedrunning it and saying that this is a perfect mascot for a full-length platforming title. And I just think there needs to be either a resurrection of characters or new characters, especially in Microsoft's pocket, that should fill that gap, because I think there is such an appetite for it, and the only people that are feeling that appetite so far are a very minute number of indie devs, which are developing and releasing on console. So I'd like to believe that is where kind of a genre gap could be filled, because it's been missing for a long time, I think. But yeah, if you've got all of these 23 plus studios mostly developing third person horror games or first person FPS games, we see loads of those. So I'd like to see something a bit new and different, or as I say, resurrecting older genres.
In fairness to both Sony and Microsoft, whilst they don't have a huge first-party presence on stuff like classic 3D platformers, Microsoft have Double Fine, and that's effectively their bread and butter. They make quite out there stuff, and Sony. As you say, Astrobot, I think it is becoming a platform mascot for them, and they specifically, even when shutting down Sony Japan, kept and beefed up Team Asobi, effectively to specifically work on fully fledged, Astrobot games. So, but I do agree. Maybe I think for Microsoft, another developer like Double Fine would be very good. Specifically, one to work on some of the classic kind of rare IPs that they have in their back pocket. I think a lot of people kind of suggested someone like Playtonic, for example, which obviously makes a lot of sense in terms of what they develop, but equally they left Microsoft specifically, they were ex-Rare developers specifically to get away from that. Now, obviously, the Microsoft now, or the Xbox now, is very different to the one they left, so It may be something that's been looked at, but we'll just have to see. But again, that would be a very natural fit, I guess, because Playtonic would just be allowed to make what they want.
Did you think Microsoft was good as their word and they will just leave devs to go and do what they want, creatively? Because I know there was a fear, I think VJ mentioned it a long time ago, about how he was kind of concerned how, Microsoft have broken studios in the past and they've tried to get involved. And obviously, it seems like now that there's so many studios that they literally can't get involved. They have to let the studios get on and create a thing. And I'm guessing, Game Pass helps ease that burden as well to a certain degree because you don't have to constantly chase the dollar from the beginning. Do you think Microsoft will actually be as good as their word and ease off the sort of the pressure on developers to develop a certain kind of thing?
Is that to me or Pox?
Yeah, sorry, yeah, Luke.
No worries. No, I think so. Yeah, I think they've probably shown that already, right? There doesn't seem to have been any particular influence that you could see. It's even little things like Obsidian making Avowed, whilst they're acquiring BGS, and obviously they'll have an Elder Scrolls. And I know Phil, I think the other day, or Matt Booty, one of them talked about how they're a bit different in terms of games, but I think that maybe the Microsoft of old wouldn't want two fantasy RPGs, made by people who've made fantasy RPGs a lot in their portfolio. They'd probably push one towards something else, right? So I think that's promising, and the proof is in the pudding as we go further along. But certainly you cannot see them. The one I always go back to is stuff like Double Fine, right? There's no way Microsoft are going to go to Tim Schafer and go, "Oh, we got a really good idea that you can work on," and it's just like something that Double Fine would never make. I think they recognise that when they're bringing these creatives on board, that first of all, Microsoft have had that reputation and they're trying to get away from it, and secondly, that you can't just force studios to make those kind of games. They won't come out. They won't result in good games. Just let them make what they want to make, and I think that's the best thing they can do. And as you say, the risk factor is really low now because you've got Game Pass, so it doesn't really matter. You're not chasing sales, you're not chasing trends. You're just chasing stuff that keeps people invested in that system, in that ecosystem.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. Boxenberg, I'll just come to you. We're just going to round up the show in a sec, but there's just one last little topic I'd like to cover, and it's one that we've covered a few times. I know Puxley's got some thoughts around this, but Phil Spencer was talking about game preservation and stuff, and things like Game Pass as a way of preserving games. But obviously there was some backlash saying, well, that's not actually a game that you ever own, and you're kind of held to ransom by the owner of that service. What's your thought on game preservation and stuff like that? Because I know Nintendo are quite guilty of kind of not preserving their games and allowing you to sort of play those games on future devices and stuff. What do you think the future is for game preservation? Should there be more focus from the platform holders on this side of things?
Definitely. I mean, the game preservation aspect of for Microsoft is like best on market right now. Of course, that you can always bring up PC where game preservation isn't an issue per se, but in the console space, what Microsoft does is just awesome with their game with their backward compatibility program, and I would love for other platform holders to adopt there. They can both run in that field. I think gaming has really become this art form that we all enjoy. That is not just something that is a is something that will disappear in the next couple of years. I remember like 20, 30 years ago, gaming was still seen as this thing that is just for kids and is something that we will grow out of, but this is just not happening. Gaming is becoming bigger and bigger. It is the most important it's the most profitable entertainment form right now. Yeah, it makes we have more revenue in gaming than in music or movies, and in music or movies we don't really have to have that discussion. We can listen to songs from like 50, 60, even 100 years ago now. Yeah, we don't have that. But with gaming, it's different. And I know that we probably don't play all these games on a regular basis. But there is some nostalgia for us gamers that grew up with certain games that we played like 30, 35 years ago. And then there is, of course, that interesting aspect for kids these days. For them being able to go back and experience the first video game ever made, Pong, or something like that. That is something we definitely should consider, and I would appreciate it if there would be a certain commitment from all the platform holders for game preservation.
Yeah, it's an interesting point because, one of my favorite games, one of the games that actually made me buy a Mega Drive or a Genesis system was a game called Castle of Illusion, Mickey Mouse, Castle of Illusion. And my original, did you say you never heard of it?
Never heard of it.
Oh, okay. No, it's called Castle of Illusion. I don't. Well, no, it might have had it might have had a different title outside of the UK. I don't know. There was a follow-up called World of Illusion, which was even better. It was actually a two-player co-op, couch co-op and stuff. And I was so pleased when I could play Castle of Illusion on I think it was the Xbox 360. It came to Xbox Arcade, and it's like, oh, that's fantastic. It's so great to be able to play that and brought back lots of memories. And you kind of forget the clunkiness of the game because obviously games and particularly the controls evolve, and it's very easy to forget how kind of awkward games were in the past compared to nowadays. But I think game preservation is very very important. And obviously one thing that obviously is unique to the gaming industry is obviously it's the platform that you play it on. Unlike movies and sound and audio, you can pretty much play them on anything, but obviously you need the hardware that's compatible to play those games. Obviously that's where game emulation comes in and stuff, but it's never quite the same because, like Puxley was saying, there's always that added layer of having to emulate on top of an operating system already that just sort of screws things up. But probably one of the other things that the PC deck's going to be used for is probably game emulation, not always. But Puxley, I know you've got lots of thoughts and opinions around game preservation and stuff like that. I don't think you're a massive fan of digital only. Is this important for everyone? Because, again, you're a Nintendo fan. How do you feel as a Nintendo fan with a lot of the IP that's, well, not IP, but a lot of the games that just sort of drifted away that you can no longer play really anymore?
Sorry, so what's the question specifically, sorry?
Well, do you think most, in fact, all platform holders should really probably take game preservation more seriously than they currently do? And if so, kind of how are they going to do that, I guess? Because, PlayStation has PS Now that you can play backwards compatible titles to a certain degree. But, I don't think Nintendo has quite anything like that, does it?
It doesn't, no, which is unfortunate. But 100%, I do believe that, these companies should, try to at least respect their own history and heritage, I guess, because a load of, all of us here on the panel and most in chat, we've grown up playing these old titles, which you just said yourself, Mickey Mouse, Castle of Illusion, which, to my own surprise, which rightly or wrongly, Archimedes hasn't heard of, which is fair enough. But then for me, I think if there's an old title out there that we love that someone else has never heard of, which is perfectly fine, I'd like to hope that, if preservation was taken more seriously to the point where these things could be played on newer platforms or were more freely available to play or to purchase, that, anyone could go out there and play them. And I think this is a perfect example, right? Because unless Archimedes is willing to go to the Xbox Arcade or whatever it is and pay for it, if it is on the X Series X or if it's on PC or whatever else, then that's fine. But I'm sure there are many other titles out there which you can't do that. And I suppose Nintendo are the worst for it, because how many times have we all bought Super Mario Bros. Over the years? And we've all played the same game. I think not many people probably completely finished the title, but everyone's finished Worlds 1 and 2, I guess, and that goes for a lot of their other IP as well. And I suppose the other people the other company, I guess, is also Sony and PlayStation. They've got a massive history, and I'd argue that with the PlayStation 1 era, they definitely kickstarted the whole era of 3D gaming, right? I mean, I know Nintendo obviously had a massive input as well, but given how popular the PlayStation 1 was, you could argue that it was actually, Sony PlayStation 1 which really kickstarted that era of 3D gaming and, developers figuring out how to create games in a 3D space. There's so many flops, but there's so many fantastic gems out there, which, you know, I suppose a good example more recently has been the remakes of Crash Bandicoot and Spyro the Dragon. There's been so many people who, maybe not so much Crash, I guess, but especially the younger audience out there who may have never heard of Spyro the Dragon, when that's a perfect character for people of all ages to enjoy, right? And it, you know, it's a shame we all have to wait for a remake for this thing to be discovered, or as you say, you know, have to wait for the system, or, you know, for these games to be released on platforms such as PS Now, which I don't even think they exist on. So I think that's the biggest gripe, I think, for a lot of us older gamers, I guess, or people in the, you know, 20s and 30s and beyond, that have that vast memory and experiences of playing those older titles, and you think, oh man, I'd love to show my kids this or show my friends this old game I used to love, but just knowing that you can't play it, right? And you think, even if it's through emulation, I think it's just a bit more effort, I think, on these developers' parts to just try to emulate these systems and to be able to play these old games. I think these companies are onto a winner. I mean, and definitely Xbox are on the right track. You know, if they can put together all the resources to basically emulate, you know, to run 360 titles, you know, why can't Nintendo emulate N64 or GameCube? You know, I mean, I know you can say arguably on the Switch it's less powerful, and emulation does take a bit more, you know, a bit more horsepower under the hood. So I can understand the Switch potentially ignoring it if it is a genuine hardware issue, but Sony on the PS5 have absolutely no issue whatsoever to be, you know, technically and hardware spec wise, while they couldn't emulate these systems. But then again, it's, I suppose, the other side of the coin. It all comes back down to, you know, these companies' philosophies, right? About, you know, they don't want to be stuck constantly in the past. They want to create brand new experiences, I guess. And I suppose, in a way, you know, if you do try to maybe ignore some of the past, does that potentially make room for creativity elsewhere? Perhaps, perhaps not. I don't know, because I think there's so many titles which do come out which take a lot of inspiration from older titles. I know, especially in the indie scene, there's a lot of indie devs now, especially on websites like itch.io, which are taking a lot of heavy inspiration from the PS1 era, and, you know, are creating PS1 style graphics because they've realised that actually it's not too difficult now with the modern tools to create and emulate, but actually it creates a fun and retro experience. So I think there is a remit for these companies to do so, but then I can also understand why they don't want to, especially, as I say, in Sony's court, because they want to focus on the brand new experiences, right? And why would you want to be, you know, why would you put your resources into creating an emulator for 3 different systems of your past when you could just focus on all the brand new stuff of the now, you know? So I can understand both sides as to why you wouldn't, but I do think there's a lot of merit in why you should, because otherwise there's a lot of fantastic titles which you just can't play. And I think even... Yeah. I appreciate I'm talking a lot, sorry, but
yeah, go on.
I think Sony's also a good example of games where games will technically be lost forever, because we've seen... I imagine a lot of people may have seen articles regarding Sony originally going to close down the PS3, PS Vita, and PSP stores, and with that, you actually completely lose access to titles that are only available on those storefronts. Now, I know that the PS3 and the PS Vita got kept alive, but the PSP did get shut down, I believe, as of July the 2nd, I think it was. And I think there was a number of titles on there which have been lost to the era, been lost to the cloud, I guess you could say, in the digital graveyard. Which is a shame, but this is why I keep kind of double playing myself here, because when I see some of these titles, you think, yeah, but nobody's really going to miss them. So this is the thing. I think there's definitely a massive market for preservation, but then to a degree, there's a lot of titles out there I just think a lot of gamers would not care enough about, to the point it's not worth the effort. Do you get what I mean? So I'm stuck in the middle myself here, as you can probably tell, but there's a lot of reasons for it and a lot of reasons against, I think.
Yeah, there's always going to be a fan of the most sort of far out, wacky kind of titles. There's going to be an absolute fan for those that, virtually no one else is kind of heard of or bothered about. And you're going to spend time and effort for that particular game. Probably not. I think it comes down to the platform, doesn't it? So someone like Microsoft obviously have cloud gaming now. They could do a lot of the emulation if they needed to, but thankfully Microsoft were quite forward thinking when they come to choosing their hardware designs from the Xbox onwards, and so game emulation for them isn't such the deal that it is for PlayStation with things like the Cell processor on the PS3 and stuff like that. But it is obviously doable, and they've got PS Now where you can play those sort of games, sort of streaming and stuff. And I know things like Heavy Rain was recoded for the PS4 and stuff. So there is an element of PlayStation doing that, but there are lots of titles out there. I guess there's going to be an element where you just have to lose those titles forever and they're gone. But I just was an interesting argument, really. And like I said, I think Microsoft with their Game Pass platform is kind of an interesting way for them to be able to preserve some of these games. It's just that you actually physically never own that game. So as and when the service ever closes, those games are kind of lost yet again to a certain degree. But fantastic. Okay, Pux, where are we with the competition? Do we have a winner?
Yes, we do. So I had 12 people give me numbers, and Wakanda's golden number was 569, and the person who guessed with only 2 away with 567 was Harley Harris. So congratulations, Harley Harris. You are our winner tonight for our 1 month Xbox Game Pass Ultimate code. Congratulations.
Fantastic. Harley, if you are on Twitter, DM me and I will send you the code for you to be able to claim the 1 month Game Pass Ultimate. That's fantastic. Yeah, excellent. Well done, Harley. Congratulations. Thank you, T. Wakanda, for the kind donation yet again. He's done quite a few of those. Really grateful. Appreciate that, my friend. Thank you very much. And thank you to the panel. That kind of wraps up our show. And we'll do a bit of a roll call. We'll come to you first, Boxenberger, if that's okay. Thank you for being here, my friend. Hope you enjoyed it. There was some chat in there about people that wanted to follow you on Twitter and stuff. So where can everyone find you?
Yeah, first of all, thanks again for having me on the show. It's always a blast here on the panel with Paxley, with Luke, with you, of course. It's always awesome to be here. You guys are driving so knowledgeable discussions. It's really awesome to be here as a guest. And yeah, people can find me basically everywhere at Boxenberger. Of course, Twitter, Xbox Live, PlayStation, and on YouTube, where I have my small but slowly growing YouTube channel. Pardon me, it's getting late over here. Again, thanks for having me. I hope to be back rather sooner than later. Again, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. Well, thank you for being here. And anyone, again, I say this quite frequently, but I can't believe anyone listening to this show doesn't know your work, Boxenberger. But just in case, absolutely check out his videos on YouTube. He covers topics that you don't really see anywhere else. The Disney one really interested me, actually. That was a few weeks ago, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Just go and check those out, because you just don't see that stuff anywhere else. And it's really well done. And you've treated yourself to a new PC to be able to process it. Probably process it faster than anything else, but fantastic, not a problem at all, my friend.
It doesn't really process faster in 4K 60, but at least the quality is better then.
Yeah, exactly.
I just realized, thanks for pointing it out to me here in the DM. I mentioned that it's always a pleasure to be on the panel with Scott as well. When I listed the panel, I went over Scott. Sorry here.
No problem. I don't think Scott will hold it against you. It's fine.
Not at all, Archimedes. Not at all. Thank you very much, man.
Well, while we're at Scott, thank you for being here, my friend. Hope you enjoyed the topics. It's always a sort of a struggle to know what to cover. Sometimes if it's a popular gaming week, you kind of feel like you're covering all the topics every other podcast ever covered. And if it's a quiet topic week, it's sometimes difficult to sort of come up with the topics. But no, I hope you've had a blast.
I definitely had.
As always, always had a lot of fun on the show, and Archimedes, absolute pleasure having you on the show, mate. We need to get you on a little bit more frequently, I think, because I love listening to Archimedes, love watching his videos as well. So please come back sooner.
I definitely will. Thank you.
Yeah, no, we'll definitely make that happen. Absolutely. Luke, thank you for being here, my friend. Any particular topic that stood out for you tonight?
I think the Steam Deck one was really good.
Yeah. I could have guessed you might have said that.
It's all Steam Deck all the time for me at the minute. So like I got to bed thinking about the Steam Deck, which is quite sad. No, that was a good one because it kind of elicits a lot of really interesting discussion, which I always very much appreciate. But all the topics really enjoyable. Awesome chat as always. Obviously, I love hanging out with you guys and Archimedes. so knowledgeable and fantastic to have him on. And again, I echo what everybody else has said. Please go and check out his videos because they are really, really good and even more high quality now that he's entered the PC Master Race. Pleasure as always.
Thank you.
Fantastic. No problem at all. Well, excellent. Puxley, thank you. Being my wingman, ran the competition, ran the chat. What topic got you fired up for tonight's show?
Similar to Luke, actually. I really enjoyed talking about the Steam Deck, the Steam Deck, I should say.
I keep saying that there is an Elgato Stream Deck for streamers.
Yes, there is.
So that is good.
And Google keeps also correcting me as well, which is annoying.
Exactly. I don't think it's picked up on Steam Deck yet, although it probably has by now. Yeah, the SOE hasn't kind of picked up on it yet.
But despite my comments on that, I was saying with Luke on the Steam Deck, I am very much looking forward to it as well. So. Haven't pre-ordered one yet. I'm not in the region to pre-order yet, but I say similar to Scott, I'm looking forward to the reviews and looking forward to seeing what comes of it. But yeah, very much enjoyed the show tonight. Great panel. As everyone else has already said, our community is great to have you on as always. And everyone, please check out his Twitter and YouTube. Great content on both of those platforms. And I'm sure we'll see you all next week. And thank you very much for tuning in. Although I have one quick thing here from Super Cosmic Puma, who's asked us, what's happened to the confessions?
Good question. I think the Confessions might actually be a show that we need to do in its own right, if that makes sense. I'll have a think about that. We'll either keep it as part of the Sunday podcast, or we'll actually do a separate show for the Confessions, because I really do enjoy those, and it's going to be nice because I don't think. Oh, actually, we did have Baldman Gamer, actually, didn't we? I was about to say, I don't think we had a guest doing Confessions, but we did have Baldman Gamer doing those, and I've got a good one lined up for next time. So, we will be doing the Confessions, because I think most people enjoy those.
Oh, definitely. And I've seen a few people in chat looking forward to us doing a community game night at some point with just the small subset of the GPG family as we speak. So I know you said about potentially setting up something for this game maybe later in the week, but we'll check everyone's availability and let you all know in the chat as well. So yeah, thank you very much for tuning in.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, this game is Splitgate. It is free to play. It's not aggressive on skins and the battle passes and stuff. It's still it is a relatively new game when it comes to consoles. It's been out since 2019 on PC apparently, but it's new on consoles as of this week. And it was in demo, but it's now actually a full release. So definitely check it out if you've liked the gameplay footage. Me and the rest of the GPG crew will be playing this game, and if you fancy taking us on in a 4-4, let us know. That's going to be fantastic. I am not here next week. I am away for a short but self-declared, well-earned break just for the weekend. So the GPG crew will hopefully still be here, but probably with a different host. But we have a plethora of people to choose from that all the more than capable of hosting this show to a fantastic standard and degree. So yes, thank you very much everyone for being here. It's always been a pleasure. It's been great. We've had fun and safe gaming, and we will see you on the next one.